All right, kids, I've made like 40 something videos now, and I personally like each and every one of them. But if there's one video I could redo, it will be the one I made about the phrase pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. Just in case you don't remember that video or you don't like it, here's a quick recap. When the phrase pull yourself up by your bootstraps was coined, it meant something that didn't make any sense. It was supposed to imply something that was impossible or absurd. We literally can't pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. Nowadays, people say pull yourselves up by your bootstraps a lot. And it's said to black people a little bit too often for me. And it now means to take care of yourself without assistance from others. Stop asking for a handout. The notion of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and blackness leads us directly to today's topic. Let's talk about victim mentality.
Thing we've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that President Trump's policies are the policies that can help people break out of the problems that they're complaining about, but he can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful.
That was somebody we don't have to worry about anymore, at least not for a little while. But he, as a politician, has some degree of power, and he is showing us what he thinks of black people. He thinks we don't want success bad enough. Now, before I continue, a victim, according to Webster's dictionary, is a person who has been attacked, injured, robbed, killed, cheated, or fooled by someone else, or harmed by an unpleasant event. These things happen to everyone during their life. If not physically, then emotionally. And everyone gets harmed by unpleasant events. We're all victims in moments, some more than others, to life's challenges and difficulties. And that's life. But victim mentality is for those who are always victims, never victors. When things go wrong, it's never their fault. They don't take the blame, don't hold themselves responsible, and fails at holding people accountable. Most importantly, they don't take action. Now, back to people like this, who forget their own reflection the second they walk away from a mirror. Government assistance provided in the form of money or food for those who cannot afford these things themselves are one of the reasons why they think black people don't want success. We'll talk about the other reasons in a minute. As you can see, black people are not the only ones receiving these benefits. However, I will concede that while black people make up 30% of the population, we maintain a third of welfare benefits. Now, I would say that black people were made poor due to centuries of racism and classism, keeping black people in poverty. But saying stuff like that leads people to think that I have a victim mentality. And welfare usually precedes three other reasons why black people are said to have a victim mentality, which include, but are not limited to, not getting past our past, violence in our community, and other minorities doing well. Let's start with systemic racism and oppression being a thing of the past. They're not. Moving on. Violence in the black community. That's targeted because it's as if black people's issues are self-inflicted, and people have very little tolerance for self-inflicted wounds. But the black community is not the only one that is having to deal with violence in our own community. Sadly, see the suicide rate and mass shooter MO. We've already talked about the black on black crime myth and how it's best explained as an economic phenomenon most likely expressed by poverty. I do want to say, though, that the same people complaining about violence in our community are the same ones who benefit from centuries of violence against us. As far as violence committed against other racial groups, all that did was give white communities the reins and control of a country. Lastly, other minorities are doing well. Generally speaking, racistly speaking, Asian people make a lot of money and have high-ranking jobs in this country. By Asian, they mean East Asian, China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and South Asian, India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and I'm sure I missed some countries in there. This goes back to the model minority, which is also a myth. Never mind the fact that these communities never face the same kind of oppression in this country that black people have. Not even close. But using the success of some Asian communities as reason to stop black people from talking about systemic racism, slavery, and Jim Crow is dismissive to say the very least. I mean, while we're at it, Jewish people have faced a lot of oppression all around the world and all throughout history. Not nearly as much in these United States, though. With that being said, still today, the Jewish community often commemorates the Holocaust and being enslaved in Egypt. Maybe since the Jewish community seems to be doing well financially, they get a pass. Even so, our people were enslaved, comparatively speaking, way more recent. It wasn't that long ago, and it was on this land we call the United States. There's a black man alive today who's the living son of an enslaved person. Whether it's being compared to East and South Asian people or Jewish people, those making those comparisons conveniently avoid the similarities between black people and Native Americans, who have also suffered tremendously and are facing current issues because of it. Do they have a victim mentality? While systems and institutions, which work just as they were intended, by the way, broke black communities, and since the U.S. government were active agents, we require them to repair what they broke. It only seems right. With that said, when we demand that injustices are made right, we're told to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps. And we're told that we have a victim mentality and we need to fix the violence and be more like other minorities and that our problems were in the past. But victims don't take action. They don't seek justice. Yet for centuries, we've endured enslavement, violence, lynching, water hoses, policies, imprisonment. And despite all that, we've revolted, fought, protested, sat in, marched, chanted, donated, volunteered, signed petitions, lobbied, sung, danced, wrote, filibustered. Meanwhile, as I alluded to earlier, a good portion of the majority of this country acts like they're victims. They pretend to suffer. They yearn to be oppressed. So kids, we don't have to be told that we have a victim mentality by those who get triggered when we say that our lives matter, who state that their freedoms are being impacted by wearing a mask, who claim that reverse racism is a real thing when it doesn't affect healthcare, education, wealth, housing, banking, and employment, who have a problem with affirmative action when it benefits white women the most, who act like victims themselves when calling the police in order for black people to be harmed by the same systems I described earlier. Looks like we're not the victims around here. They are going to have to want success for themselves. As history has proven, we're going to be all right. Haircut